Reincarnation, a journey beyond one lifetime. There is an ancient echo that travels beyond the breath of death and the cry of birth, a whisper carried through the centuries by those who dared to remember. Reincarnation, veiled in mysticism and dismissed by the modern mind, is not merely a concept, but an ancient law etched into the very fabric of existence. Long before the empires of man rose and fell, before parchment bore the names of prophets and kings, the keepers of wisdom spoke of the eternal return, the soul's pilgrimage through countless forms and faces, in their hidden scrolls and forbidden books. It is said that the soul is a traveler, not a tenant, and that each body it inhabits is a chapter in a far greater story. The echoes of this journey still ripple within us, through dreams we cannot explain, through fears that make no sense, and through the strange familiarity we feel when walking paths we've never walked before. You see, birth is not a beginning. It is a continuation, and death is not an end. It is a door. This truth was not meant for common ears, but preserved by those whose minds were sculpted through inner alchemy. Tibetan monks, Egyptian high priests, mystics of forgotten lineages, all guarded this sacred knowledge like fire in winter. They knew that the soul, composed of energy too subtle to measure, absorbs lessons across many lifetimes, like a pearl growing in depth with each dive into form. What you call instinct may be memory. What you call talent may be experience, distilled over centuries. What you fear the most might be a shadow cast by something you once lived, long before this name and this face. The ancient teachings speak of karmic imprints, of energetic codes that we carry, codes written not on flesh, but on the luminous thread of our cosmic essence. This understanding was never meant to be public. Why? Because to awaken such knowledge is to reclaim a power feared by institutions. The soul that knows its history cannot be enslaved by the illusion of finality. It cannot be manipulated by the false belief that this life is all there is. The idea of reincarnation was systematically removed from sacred texts, hidden beneath layers of dogma, censored from councils, and burned in libraries whose ashes still scream in silence. But fragments remain in ancient Vedic scriptures, in Gnostic gospels exiled from the canonical Bible, in the papyri of the Dead Sea and the scrolls of Nag Hammadi. These texts prohibidos still survive in corners untouched by time, reminding us that existence is a cycle, not a sentence. And if that is true, what else have they tried to erase from your memory? Now ask yourself, how many times have you looked into a stranger's eyes and felt a sadness you couldn't name? How often have you met someone and sensed a familiarity so deep it defied logic? These are not accidents, they are signatures, energetic imprints of past crossings, echoes of oaths made under other skies. In the language of the soul, time is not linear but spherical, folding in upon itself like a mandala of eternity. Through this lens, pain takes on new meaning. It becomes a teacher. Joy becomes remembrance. And every encounter, no matter how brief, becomes sacred. Those who truly see beyond the veil speak of soul families, contracts made before incarnation, and missions forgotten at birth but felt as an unshakable pull. The more you observe, the more the illusion cracks. And so, the path before us deepens. But to explore it further, one must understand why we forget. If the soul has traveled far and wide across the plains of existence, why does it not remember? Why do we awaken in this life with no conscious trace of the ones before? The answer lies not in loss, but in protection. And that mystery is where our journey continues. The veil of forgetfulness and its purpose. Imagine for a moment that you awaken today with full memory of every life you've ever lived, every heartbreak, every betrayal, every moment of death. Could your heart bear Could your mind remain still beneath the weight of 1,000 joys and 1,000 tragedies? The ancients, in their Sabedoria ancestral, knew that remembrance is not always liberation. In their hidden doctrines, they spoke of a sacred mechanism, a veil placed between lifetimes to shield the soul during its descent. This veil is not a punishment, but a divine safeguard, a curtain woven with threads of mercy. It keeps the psyche intact, preventing the collapse of one life under the echoes of another. This veil is the space where energy recalibrates, where the soul breathes between incarnations before re-entering the stage of matter, and yet, despite its purpose, the veil is not perfect. It is porous, like silk touched by time. Through its thin places, fragments of memory sometimes escape. We experience them as intuition, as gut feelings, as déjà vu that grips the spine with icy certainty. These are not hallucinations, but keys from your soul, encoded messages sent across dimensions to awaken your awareness. In the mystic schools of Atlantis, it was taught that the soul encodes intentions before entering the body, setting markers that activate at specific moments. These moments may be triggered by places, people, sounds, or even silence. They are the soul's way of calling itself home, whispering, "You have been here before." And when you listen closely, those whispers begin to form words. But why then does the veil exist at all? Why hide what is ours by right? The answer lies in the design of growth. Just as a seed must forget the tree it came from in order to become a tree itself, so must the soul forget in order to rediscover. This is the mystery of the labyrinth. It is not meant to trap you, but to teach you how to walk it with presence. The veil ensures that our lessons are authentic, that we act from choice, not memory. It is in the forgetting that free will finds its highest expression, and through that freedom, the soul reclaims its mastery. Without the veil, we would merely repeat patterns mechanically. With it, we awaken from within. The alchemy interior that unfolds in this process is sacred, transmuting ignorance into wisdom and memory into illumination as spiritual. Still, the veil has its price. It can make us feel alone, as though we are cut off from the divine, from our origins, from purpose itself. It is in this emptiness that many fall into despair, mistaking forgetfulness for abandonment. But this, too, is part of the design. In the esoteric teachings buried beneath centuries of religious censorship, it is said that longing is the soul's compass. That yearning you feel for something unnamed, that aching nostalgia for a home you've never seen, is a residue from beyond the veil. It is the signature of your cosmic lineage, reminding you that your story didn't start here. And in that subtle pain lies the impulse to seek, to question, to awaken. It is the friction that sparks the fire of remembrance. As we now turn our gaze inward, we begin to see that the veil is not only something that was placed upon us, it is also something we agreed to. Before incarnating, the soul consents to the forgetting, just as a dreamer consents to sleep, but even dreams leave traces. And so the soul plants signs along the way, clues hidden in plain sight. The next step in our journey is to decode them, to recognize the signs of past lives bleeding into the present. For those who dare to look beyond the veil, the truth begins to surface. 10 signs of past lives, manifesting in the present. There are moments in life that feel off script. You walk into a city you've never visited, and your heart skips with recognition. A melody you've never heard brings tears you can't explain. These are not coincidences. They are resonances, vibrations of a soul echoing across the corridors of time. According to ancient esoteric traditions, these anomalies are not to be ignored. They are signs, coded reminders that your current existence is but a single chapter. in a vast library of incarnations. In the hidden schools of initiation, students were trained to observe these anomalies as evidence of the soul's deep memory, a memory encrypted in the body, the emotions, and the subconscious mind. It is through these clues that the mysterios occultos of your existence begin to unravel. The first is the sensation of déjà vu, not the fleeting, curious kind, but those visceral episodes where time bends and reality feels rehearsed. In these moments, the Sabiduria Ancestral suggests your soul is recognizing a scene it has already lived in another life. The second is the instant connection, those inexplicable bonds with strangers who feel like family, lovers, or ancient enemies. Such meetings are not random. They are intersections of karmic contracts echoing through the threads of Energia Cosmica. The third sign is when children, often before the age of 7, demonstrate wisdom beyond their years or talents with no known origin. In ancient Tibet, this was seen as proof of reincarnation, and such children were often taken to temples to be observed by spiritual masters. Then come the spontaneous memories or dreams, so vivid, so detailed they cannot be imagined. People often describe seeing themselves in other bodies, places, or eras, with emotions too real to deny. These aren't figments, they are imprints, pieces of lives once lived bubbling up from the deeper mind. Unexplained fears or phobias, like drowning despite never having been near the ocean, or a fear of fire without ever being burned, are the fourth and fifth signs. These emotional responses are like scars on the soul, remnants of past traumas, left unresolved. The sixth sign manifests as an intense fascination with certain cultures or time periods. You may feel an irrational pull to ancient Egypt, feudal Japan, or lost civilizations like Lemuria. This longing often comes from a life once lived in those very lands. The seventh sign is the unmistakable feeling of being an old soul. If you've ever felt like you never quite fit in with your generation, or if you carry a depth of emotion and perception far beyond your years, it may be because you've walked this earth many times before. The eighth sign reveals itself through repeating patterns, the same toxic relationships, similar betrayals, recurring lessons that seem to follow you no matter where you go. These are karmic loops, unfinished business, from other lifetimes playing out until healed. The ninth sign is a persistent search for deeper meaning, that restless hunger to find your purpose, the metaphysical questions that keep you awake. These arise when the soul is trying to remember its mission. And finally, the 10th, energetic sensitivity. If you absorb emotions easily, feel drained around certain people, or need time alone to recharge, it is often because your energy field is refined by countless incarnations. Each of these signs is a thread in the tapestry of your eternal journey. But recognizing them is not the destination. It is merely the opening of the scroll. The true alchemy interior begins when you seek to integrate what has been revealed, to heal what was fractured, and to understand why these patterns persist. These signs are not curiosities. They are invitations, invitations to a deeper awareness, a more profound healing, and a sacred reunion with your soul's eternal story. And so the path leads us further still, for once the signs have spoken, the question arises, what do we do with this knowledge? How do we integrate these fragments into the wholeness of our being? And that, my friend, is where the next chapter begins. Integration, healing, and self-awareness. Awareness by itself is a spark, but integration is the flame. To merely notice the signs of past lives is not enough. The true journey begins when we gather these fragments and illuminate them with understanding. In the ancient teachings of the East, preserved in textos prohibidos whispered among monks in high mountain sanctuaries, it is said, memory without healing becomes weight. Memory with wisdom becomes wings. The soul's echoes are not meant to haunt you. They are meant to guide you toward completion. When we face recurring pain, fears, or patterns, we are not being punished by some invisible force. We are being invited to complete a cycle. We are being asked to transmute suffering into wisdom. This is the essence of alchemia interior. Healing begins in stillness, not in struggle. Many carry burdens from lifetimes ago, unresolved betrayals, regrets, wounds of the spirit. These echoes reverberate subtly through chronic emotional states, through repeating life themes, or through invisible resistance to growth. But when these shadows are acknowledged, not with fear, but with reverence, they lose their power to harm. The ancient shamans believed that awareness was the first medicine. To simply witness your own patterns without judgment is to awaken a force dormant within you, the force of transmutation. Through meditative reflection, conscious breathing, sacred journaling, or ritual acts of remembrance, you begin to weave those scattered threads into a unified tapestry. What was once a source of confusion becomes a map. What once felt like chaos reveals itself as encoded guidance from your higher self. But how do we know we're healing? It isn't always dramatic. In fact, it often begins subtly, like no longer reacting to an old trigger, or finally understanding why a certain person appears in every chapter of your life. Healing is not about forgetting what was. It is about changing your relationship with it. The energy behind the memory is what transforms. This is where the Energia Cosmica responds. When your soul witnesses you acting with awareness instead of reaction, the universe mirrors back new possibilities. You shift timelines. You dissolve contracts that no longer serve your evolution. This, the mystics say, is the true purpose of incarnation. Not to achieve, but to remember and refine. The deeper your self-awareness, the greater your ability to navigate reality with clarity and soul alignment. There is also a sacred responsibility that comes with remembrance. As your soul awakens to its multidimensional nature, you begin to see the wounds of others differently. Compassion deepens, judgments fade. You realize that we are all fragments of the same cosmic prism, each reflecting a different angle of the infinite light. Those who hurt you may have once been your protectors. Those you love inexplicably may have walked with you in forgotten lifetimes. Forgiveness becomes less about letting others off the hook and more about freeing your own soul from the weight of entanglement. This is the wisdom the old masters knew, that forgiveness is an act of energetic liberation, a ritual that unbinds your frequency and lifts your soul closer to Illumina Soma Spiritual. And so the question lingers like incense in the air. What will you do with what you now remember? Integration is not the end. It is the foundation upon which a new level of consciousness can be built. One where you no longer fear death, for you have already died many times. One where you no longer feel lost, for your soul always leaves clues. And one where you begin to live, not just for this life, but in harmony with all lives that came before. But the story does not end here. For every soul that remembers must eventually ask, what truly happens after death? What unfolds in the sacred cycle of the first 365 days beyond the veil? That revelation awaits. What if I told you that your soul already knows what happens after death, but it's been forced to forget? What if there's a forbidden book, buried in silence, hidden from public eyes, that describes in detail what unfolds in the very first 365 days after your final breath? This is not a fantasy. This is knowledge once carved into sacred tablets, guarded in temples lost to time, and whispered in secret to those deemed spiritually ready. For centuries, this truth has been suppressed, removed from sacred scriptures, erased from religious councils, and cast into the shadows. Why? Because within these ancient pages lies the map of the soul's journey beyond the grave. A journey that reveals more than just what happens after death. It reveals who you truly are beneath the illusion of a single lifetime. Tonight, you are not watching a video. You are stepping into a gateway. You will discover how the soul detaches from the physical body, how it is guided through vibrational realms, and how your thoughts, actions, and frequency shape your afterlife experience in ways modern science dares not explore. This isn't just information, it's a sacred return to Sabiduría Ancestral. As we unfold these Misterios Ocultos, you'll feel the veil lift, and perhaps in the spaces between the words, your soul will begin to remember. If you've ever sensed that death is not the end, if you've ever dreamed of places you've never seen or felt emotions that don't belong to this life, this message is for you. You didn't find this by chance. The universe brought you here for a reason. So before we begin this journey into Textos Prohibidos and cosmic truths, do one thing. Like this video, leave a comment with the phrase, "My soul is ready to." Remember, and don't forget to subscribe, because what you're about to hear will change the way you understand life, death, and everything in between. Now that you've glimpsed the hidden truths of what happens in the 365 days after death, one question remains. What other secrets have been kept from you, and why? Path of spiritual remembrance is not easy, but it is sacred. You've just taken a step beyond illusion, into a space where energy, memory, and meaning collide in ways few dare to explore. But this is only the beginning. The universe is vast, the soul is eternal, and the truth is deeper than we've been told. So I ask you, what did your soul feel while listening to this? Was there a moment where something deep inside stirred? An echo, a memory, a knowing? Share your reflections in the comments below. Let's awaken together. And if this journey moved you, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who is ready to see beyond. The veil, your next revelation is already waiting.